Welcome back to the Voices of Madison Park, Season 2, Episode 4, where we highlight the people shaping our school and community. Whether you're listening on your way to school or watching online, we appreciate you tuning in. Today we're diving into something that affects every student: reading, writing, and what it really takes to be prepared for college and beyond. Our guest today, Mr. Samaha, has been teaching ELA at Madison Park for 6 years, and he also teaches at Bunker Hill Community College. Today we'll be talking about the skills that make a difference, the challenges that students face, and what we can all do to get better at reading and writing. So let's get into it. Mr. Samaha, welcome to the show.
Hey, Davina, thank you. It's great to be here. Great to talk about reading and writing. I'm excited. So let's get into it.
All right, here's the first question. Let's start with your journey. What made you want to become a teacher, and how did you end up at Madison Park?
It's a good question. I'd say that there was a time, I think, when I was in high school where I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to work in journalism or work in television, something along those lines. And one of the things that I did when I got to college was I started working at a summer camp, and I liked that, and I liked working with kids. So I decided, let me try to merge those two things together: my love of reading and writing, and working with kids. And so I kind of became a teacher, and I've been a teacher now for a really long time. I was at another school before Madison Park, but I've been here for 6 years, and I've had a really, really good experience here in the past 6 years.
So what college did you go to?
I went to the University of New Hampshire. I went to the University of New Hampshire for my undergraduate degree, and then my graduate degree is from UMass Boston.
Oh, so did you grow up here or in?
I grew up in New Hampshire, northern part of New Hampshire. Very different than Boston. A lot more open space, a lot more open space and mountains up there. But I've lived in Boston, in the Boston area now for, since I graduated from college, and that's, so 20 something years now.
So how did you end up in Madison Park?
So I was working at another school for close to 16, 17, 18 years at this other school. And I realized that maybe I wanted to try something new. I wasn't sure if I wanted to spend my whole career, in sort of in one school. So I had a friend that worked here. Shout out to Miss Stamegna in the special ed office, because we worked together at the school before that. And she had come over here, and I was really impressed with the things that she was saying about the school. I really, the vocational aspect of the school, being a CTE vocational school, I think was really important to me and really appealed to me, I guess I would say, that kids are able to get, the focus on academics, but also to build, a trade in all sorts of different areas, which I think are really, really needed today. And my wife actually works at a vocational school as well. So the vocational aspect of it really appealed to me, as well as meeting kids who were real, hardworking.
So I know you mentioned about vocational education. Why'd you choose Madison Park specifically? Why not a different voc school outside of the state?
I chose Madison Park. I started my career, so I started teaching in Boston, and I wanted to stay in Boston. I really like, there's a lot of, ups and downs in the Boston public schools, and there's some great stuff, there's some not so great stuff, but I do love the city, and I love being in the Boston public schools, so I wouldn't necessarily want to work in another district.
So you also teach at Bunker Hill Community College, correct?
That's correct.
How does teaching at both the high school and a college level give you a different perspective on education?
I think that what it does is it allows me to sort of see, what it is that students need to do. So you can kind of see. So for most of my career, where I've been teaching high school, seeing some of the reading and writing, and then thinking about, when is what we're is what we are doing preparing them for college, and then being at the college level and seeing what the expectation is there. One of the things that I want to do, or one of my goals, is to sort of bridge that divide. And one of the great things about Madison Park is the RocksMap early college program. Shout out to Mr. Grace. The program has been running for a number of years, and we've really tried to expand since I've been with the program in the past couple of years, trying to offer more opportunities for kids to really experience, what are college level expectations, because they are different than high school expectations, for the most part. There's a much bigger emphasis on independent work and working at your own pace, and longer projects, I think. And the writing is a lot longer. I think at the college level, in high school, you might think of the 5-paragraph essay as sort of like the standard way high school writing is taught. In college, it's good to know the 5-paragraph essay, but it gets to a whole nother level, as
Right.
MLA format, and writing, more and more. So I think that what I've noticed is that, because for RocksMap here, we teach 10th graders, which is really young to be doing college level work. But I see students every year like rising to that level, and so it's really great to see.
So what type of college work were you doing
With college work that I do when I was a student,
when you were a student? What's to
it
be
was
expected?
it was a lot of writing and a lot of research. When you're in college, you take so for an undergraduate, you have your major, which is your focus, but you also have all of these general education classes that everybody has to take. So I had to take writing. Obviously I took writing classes, but I took science classes and philosophy classes. And the hardest, they took this one class that, because I'm not really a math or science person, I appreciate science a ton, and I appreciate the process and everything about science, but I'm not all that good at doing it. And so when I went to UNH, University of New Hampshire, they gave us, you had to take 3 different science classes. And I was like, wow, this is a lot. And so I found that there was a philosophy class that counted as a science class. And I said, well, that's my ticket. That's the class that I'm going to take. It's the hardest class I ever took in my life. It was and this is, so I'm older. So this was in the mid 1990s, and the class was all about artificial intelligence, and it was about computer programming and how, all of the things that we're hearing about now. It was like all of the background for what sort of happened with AI now. So I'm glad that I took the class, because I think I understand some of the AI stuff that's happening now. But that class was so hard, because I don't have my brain doesn't work in that way.
So you mentioned philosophy, right? I've looked a little bit into philosophy myself. I know about Socrates, Epicurus, talking about Stoicism, Zeno as well. So when you were taking philosophy classes, what's a fun fact that you learned?
Fun fact that I learned in philosophy classes, I think that the thing that I probably took away from, so I took maybe 2 or 3 philosophy classes, and I think the thing that I took away from philosophy classes was that there are so many different ways that people can think about existence and think about how, there's just, the world is just so big, and there's so much out there, and there's so many different, schools of thought. So it's always interesting to me, and I think one of the things I like about philosophy is seeing how other people view the world. I think that's an important skill that we all need to have, is to be able to see, somebody else's perspective, to see how other people think, and sort of, evaluate it and see if that meshes with our own sense.
So talking about philosophy, what's your philosophy at Madison Park?
My philosophy at Madison Park? Oh, geez. I'll say that my philosophy at Madison Park is work hard. I think that's probably that's my number one thing is I work hard as a teacher, and I expect my students to work hard. But that doesn't mean that it's all work and no play. I think we have fun, but it's, I guess, sort of, you've heard the work hard, play hard mentality. That's kind of how I think about it too, because we work really hard, but there's always going to be time for joking around and for having fun, and things can be so serious sometimes. Sometimes it's nice to take things not so seriously.
So from what you've seen, what is the biggest challenge high school students face when it comes to reading and writing?
I think one of the biggest challenges students face is, I think that nowadays one of the biggest, and you'll see it across classrooms, is phones. And I think kids' attention span has really been impacted, especially coming out of the pandemic. I think kids' attention spans are so much lower than they used to be. And that means that the sustained time that they're reading, a text or writing an essay is going to be a lot lower. So I think that, and that's like a cultural thing, and I don't necessarily know how to best to address that. So I think the attention span is probably one of the biggest problems. And I also think that being a high school where students come from all over the city, that across the city there isn't always the same level of like rigor or exposure to different reading and writing from all of these different schools that come here. So kids have different experiences and different expectations, and then trying to meet my expectations and the other teachers' expectations, I think, can be really tough. So I think part of it is attention span. Part of it is the fact that there isn't a ton of consistency that I've seen from middle schools or K-8 schools that are sending kids here. The expectations are all over the place, and that's not their fault.
I remember you taught a lesson. I think it was term 1. I was in your class. You taught a lesson on phones. I've seen that a lot of schools in Boston are having students put their devices into little bags and like hang them up.
Yeah.
Do you think that Madison Park should do that?
You put me on the spot here with that with that question. There's going to be some people that like my answer and people that don't like my answer.
It's all philosophy.
It's all philosophy. Yep. I'll say that I am not. There's a reason that I'm not an administrator. I'm not an assistant principal. I'm not a principal. Those are decisions that I think need to be made at that level. I do see that phones are a huge problem in my class and in other people's classes that I go to. I think it's really, really difficult when you think about it's not just the phone, but it's the TikTok or the Instagram or whatever the app is. Like, that app is optimized to grab your attention. And I think that a lot of students don't have the ability to resist that temptation. I mean, you even walk around the school. There's teachers, administrators. Everyone in the whole world, is sort of on their phones because these companies have figured out how to get your attention. And it sometimes as a teacher, like, it doesn't matter how interesting what I'm doing. It doesn't matter how interesting it is. If kids have access to that phone that's right there and they don't have the ability to, resist that temptation, it's going to be a problem. So, I think that while I'm not making that decision, I'm telling you that it's definitely a problem. And you probably see it in your classes, right? Like, it's definitely a problem. And so something does need to be done about it, but I'm not the one to make that decision.
Right. So what separates a strong reader and a writer from the rest? Talking about motivation, some students don't feel motivated to go and grab a book and read.
Right.
So thinking of how you are motivated, what do you think separates a good reader, a strong reader?
I think part of it can sometimes be part of it can sometimes be mindset. I think one of the things that I know that myself and a lot of the ELA teachers here at Madison have done is to really get libraries. And I know that I don't have enough books on Civil War generals, but I'm looking into it, right? So like, I think that we've sort of created these libraries where that have a variety of books that are going to appeal to kids on like a lot of different levels. From books, from like graphic novels to traditional novels to things that'll get anybody's sort of interest. So I think part of it is for students finding like the right book or sort of getting over the sort of fear like of reading or the fear or learning to put the phone away, and that's a big part of it. So I think what separates good readers from maybe like struggling readers, students who maybe not be as proficient as others, is partially about the time, the attention, but also like finding the right book. And sometimes that is a mindset change where like I got to change if you have like this growth mindset where, oh, hey, maybe I might like a book. That's a lot different than a kid who comes in and says, I hate all books. You know what I mean? And I've had a couple students like that throughout the years. Who are like, oh, I don't ever read books.
So talking about books, what are some suggestions you have?
For books?
If you ask me, I'm going to start naming a ton of Civil War books. I'm going to say a ton of names that probably people don't know, like Joshua L. Chamberlain, Ulysses Grant. Some people might know him. So what are some books that you might have? So
books that I like myself, or books that I would recommend for students, because those are two different things. Books that I like, my students might not necessarily like. I think for students, I think some of the books, like over the course of my time teaching, students have gravitated towards some of the young adult type novels, which are written, which are fiction, but are kind of about something that might seem real. The first one that comes to my head is The Hate You Give. That's kind of like, that was like a really big book a couple of years ago that a lot of students have liked. There's another book that's even older than that, but some students tend to like too, called The Coldest Winter Ever. But I think that there are some other books that I've got manga, and I've got graphic novels. I've got whatever it is, One Punch Man, and Naruto, and some of these other books that kids like. I think part of it is for students. I mean, I can recommend a book in general, but I think it means, for me as a teacher, I want to get to know a student and what they like and what their interests are, and then I'd be like, all right, let's zero in on these types of books, because some students are going to be, oh, I want to read the story about the serial killer. Somebody else is going to read the story where it's just all nice and nothing bad happens, and somebody else is going to read about war or whatever, civil war or any war. I was saying I don't have, again, my war books are not as strong as they could be.
So if you could change one thing about how students approach education, what would it be?
Mindset. One thing, mindset. I think that students. I think having an open mind and thinking that they can. There's a quote that I often use, and I forget who said it.
Is it from a philosopher?
Probably, but I forget who said it. But it's, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Basically meaning, if you think you can do it, you can do it. If you think you can't do it, you're not going to be able to do it. Right. So if you're just sort of always approaching things where like, well, let me try. I think having an open mind and sort of a growth mindset and understanding, like, if you have a difficulty, right? There's somebody else, I know there's a quote somewhere, it's like, it's not about how many times you fall down, but how many times you get up.
Right.
So I think learning from your mistakes, I think is the mindset that people need to have, and that they can't. They just have to try.
Is that something you picked up on in high school or college?
It's something that I probably picked up on in college. It's a philosophy, or it's an idea that I've always had personally, but I don't think I was ever able to put it in words. Kind of actually really until later on. I was probably actually already teaching before this woman, Carol DeWick, I forget what university she's at, but she's done a lot of research into this idea of growth versus fixed mindset. And I really I've read a bunch of her work, and it's really kind of interesting to see, just when you have whatever your attitude is, says a lot about how far, you can go.
Right. So, Mrs. Samaha, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your experiences and insights with us. Is there any final words you'd like to say to our students?
I just want to say I love being here. You guys, I am consistently impressed with students, like every single day. Every day that I walk out of here, there is something a student has said or done that has really changed my mind about things. So keep coming to school and keep reading, keep writing.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in to the Voices of Madison Park. We'll be right back next time with another guest who's shaping our school and community. See you then.